Welcome once again to the Thursday Nite Rant. Still laugh every time I say it. Right, I've gathered you both here this evening to talk about crunch, right? Something that we've all got an opinion on, I think, because it is it's an issue that's really prominent in the games industry right now. It's kind of just a general issue with sort of global society because, like, you know, workers are fighting to keep their rights or just have rights in the first place at the moment. I mean, I feel like the global workforce is in a fight to the death, really, with its corporate masters, isn't it? Which brings me to Glen Schofield's comments a while back, which, in fairness to him, he did walk back after being like called out on it quite a lot. But he said back when they were developing the Callisto Protocol, we're working 6 to 7 days a week. Nobody's forcing us. Exhaustion, tired, COVID. But we're working. Bugs, glitches, performance fixes, one last pass-through audio, 12 to 15-hour days. This is gaming, hard work, lunch, dinner, working. You do it because you love it. And it quite rightly got a lot of people's backs up. What somebody criticized him for shortly after that was weaponizing passion, which I think is a really good way of putting it. And now we know that it didn't really work out in terms of making a quality product. Because, I mean, the Callisto Protocol has its fans. It's not a terrible game by any means, but it's like, it's a bang average. It's got a lower user score on Metacritic than a critic score, which usually tells you that the critics didn't actually get it wrong. It's got, like, for PS5 version, which is like widely regarded as the best version of the game, has 72 Metascore and a 6.9 user score, which is like, if you've worked like 15-hour days on that for years of your life and slowly watched as your family sort of leave you, as your the pigment sort of like slowly dissolves from your hair, etc. You don't do that for a 72 on Metacritic. That's devastating, right? So what are we saying here? They shouldn't have bothered, basically. Like, you could have put that game out with a normal work-life balance and probably also got a 72. Or maybe you would have got a better score because people who aren't tired tend to work better.
Yeah, it's kind of been proven, right, over the past few months, years, etc. That crunch kind of has like a really bad effect on development when done in like long periods, right? It sounds obviously like, from what Glenn said before, people and probably his PR team yelled at him, was that they had been buckling down for months and months and months on it, right? You can only imagine what it's like for the people working on it to kind of have to go through that and be like, yeah, it was all right. It must be disheartening. And
yeah,
like,
it's awful.
It's just kind of like a sad thing to think about, in it, because you can only think about the people being like, well, I don't have to do overtime, but Glenn's in the office and he's walking around and
Glenn's being passionate,
being super passionate. He's just so passionate about us being here working on games. Yeah, it just kind of feels bad. Because like I said, the game's decent, right? There's a lot of good stuff in there. There's obviously a lot of work been done to it, a lot of new ideas, a lot of old ideas kind of like refreshed a little bit. Yeah. So
in fairness, I don't know how long this 12-15 hour thing has been going on at striking distance. Like, this could just be the last month. It could be the entirety of the development, which are two different things. They're both terrible, but one is very much a culture of crunch and the other is just a final push. But true. I think if it's just done in the last couple of weeks to hit the deadline, that's usually done to fix problems like he mentioned and to optimize the game and to make it, because you're not going to change the game design or really anything meaningful in that period. You're just polishing what's already there.
Yep.
And so you did all this work, assuming it's just the final push, and then the game comes out. Only one of the versions people can safely say, go play. PC had, I think they might have fixed that already, but PC had issues with stuttering that are just basically the classic Unreal Engine stutter, which every time a new effect or something new loads on screen, it stutters. because they did not do a shader compilation thing at the start of the game, which just fascinates me because that problem has happened in so many games that use DX12 that no one, like it continues to happen that games come out and then they have this problem and then compile shaders as you play. And it's like, just put a thing in, like Call of Duty does it. So many other games do it. At the start of of the first launch of the game after new drivers, you're just going to have to wait, let's say 3 minutes. Just go make a cup of tea, come back, everything will be smooth. Like I don't understand why this is a problem, especially since they can quickly add it after launch. So that's a problem on PC. You have missing RT effects on Xbox. Not even talking about like the normal performance dips and all this other stuff that most games just have these days because they're so complex. So you did all this stuff, and yet the technical state of the game, just let's forget about like the design merits of it. The technical state of the game is not good, and you have to because make no mistake, they're still working on the game, even though it's out and in people's hand. They're gonna be working until maybe like December 20th to put out a couple more patches to fix the work that they already did tired, which is just it's just heartbreaking to be like, okay, we tried to. It's like running to like running a marathon as someone who just was a stopwatch. Is like, well, you failed, but if you could continue running, you could maybe we'll give you some points at the end of it just to save face. And it's just why are we doing this? Like this clearly need a delay. I don't know whose obviously decision was to push it, because like especially if you've been covering this industry for long enough, or have been at least playing games for long enough, games that come out early December are not usually like, this is not a date that usually anyone wants to release games at, because it's after anyone is going to give a shit about it in terms of award nominations, because everyone has put together their lists. And it's at a point where it cannot go on sale immediately. Because they need to sell it at full price for as long as they can. Meanwhile, all other games that came out in the fall can be like, hey, 20% off for the holidays to get people in. So it's tough competition in the market. It is tough competition on the critical side. And you risk just having the game disappear, because if no one is talking about it and no one is playing it, maybe it will do sales. So this is a really dangerous spot for a game to be in already. So why not just delay it and put it just January 30th, give people the break, and it will be much better than it is now. Maybe not in design elements, but in the technical state. Like, it just seems to me like this date was decided upon, and like hell or high water, it needs to be met. And it just seems like this is a new IP, this is a new game. Like, I want to give them a chance. Since it's a new studio, like you don't get a new studio with to make something as visually impressive as that often. And this is a veteran team, but like I find it hard to sympathize with that, because it's like, okay, if you try to put all that aside and play the game, it's not very good, and it's giving me issues here and there on the technical side. So it's just like, why? What was this all worth it? Like, what is this? What's this for?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting one as well, because they could conceivably have kind of like snuck in before Starfield, and being kind of the big game of Q1, because I think Starfield's coming at the end of Q1, right? So I'm trying to think what it is what they were looking to avoid by pushing out before Christmas. It's not really the kind of game that people buy each other for Christmas either, is it? Callisto Protocol.
It's the game you buy each other for Halloween, which it missed. So like,
well, Christ, yeah.
I like at that point, if there was a date to rush for, we've already gone past it, and I'm sure they would have fought for that date as well. Like,
I'm wondering if it has something to do with the Dead Space remake date. Maybe they had information about when it's going to hit, so they tried to preemptively kind of compete with it, because there's a lot of pedigree there on this being a lot of people who worked on Dead Space, and this being inspired by Dead Space, even though it's not actually. It doesn't actually play like Dead Space at all. I feel like maybe there were like some sort of beef there to say like, oh, well, no, screw you, we're going to put our thing out before you. But the way, hindsight, obviously, but like the way I look at it now, you could still do it after Dead Space, and people are like, oh, this is the old stuff, it looks nice and all, but we want something new inspired by it. And then you come and say, have I just got this thing for you? It's called the Callisto Protocol. It's coming out in February or whatever. Like, that could have been a good thing to have, like the juxtaposition of those two products. But I don't know. It just seems it's a weird. All this is weird for fairly zero gain, which like like where's the end? Where's the out? Like I don't see the justification for any of this.
Yeah, it's almost like they kind of like they got this date into their head out of habit, and sometimes you just get an arbitrary thing going, don't you?
Yeah.
You're like, let's do an opinion video every Thursday.
But like this is a problem.
We're doing it out of passion, Jim.
It's true. Yeah.
No one is forcing us to do this.
Yeah.
But this is a problem that isn't gonna. You'd hope that crunch will like eventually fade out, but it is gonna eventually fade out, like over years and years, because obviously Glen's learned that this is the way to do things over his career working in games, right? And there'll be a generation of people under Glen who have worked in these big studios who have learned, well, okay, we're like a month to 3 months before release or whatever. We need to crunch to hit these targets, to hit this date. And then obviously they'll learn, well, this is the way you make big games. And it will kind of go on and on and on until enough people, enough studios are like, nah, we don't do it that way. We do it crunchless or as with as little crunch as possible. But that sort of slow changing of like who's making the decisions on those sorts of things will take ages. So it might be tempting to kind of be like, oh man, we all know crunch is bad by now. Why is it still happening? But it's going to sadly probably keep happening for years, which is why it's really important to, kind of keep staying on it and keep saying it's bad, so we don't slowly drift back into you got to hustle for this December release date sort of mentality.
Yeah. I feel like that's a real kind of boomer kind of Gen X mindset as well. This idea of hustling and like, you gotta be the last one to leave the office and the first to arrive the next morning. You got to be a go-getter. It's like millennials kind of got very tired of that grind, especially because being the first generation in decades whose living standards and wages and general quality of life was worse than their forebears. There's just no kind of real incentive. It's easy to sort of say, well, you gotta kiss up to the boss and work really hard, and you put in your 18-hour days, and then you can retire at 60, and then spend the last 20 years of your life like going on cruises or whatever. That's not gonna happen for us. Like, I'm gonna die at my fucking desk.
With no heat on.
Yeah, freezing to death. Like, it might be tomorrow. So that's there's a massive difference in work culture. There is a real kind of delusion among the older generation. A lot of whom are now out of the workforce entirely, so don't really know what they're talking about. They're like, working hard pays off, and I'm sure there was a time when it did. But it doesn't really anymore. And, like case in point, people worked really hard on this game and people put a lot of themselves into this product. You can tell they wanted to make the best Dead Space game that had ever been made, and they fell massively short of that. And it wasn't because of a lack of talent. These are really talented artists that work on this thing. And you know what? I don't want to be too hard on Glen Schofield because, like, I don't think he's a bad guy. I've met him, and when he talks about being passionate, like he is.
But he's also a very old industry person, so so that's where this is coming from. And I think he should be more careful about what he's saying because in his head it might be like this is a good thing to say that we're so passionate that we're working hard, but he's in a position of power, and directly or indirectly, that's going to inspire other people to do the same, which is how crunch culture happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that everyone's it's like a bit of a manufactured consent for it, really, isn't it? Whether people intend that or not. It just exhausts people and burns people out. And that's no good for anyone. And it's no good for the industry ultimately, because this industry, games, and whether we're talking about our side of it, the media, or the development side of it, or marketing, or any side of it, really, because it's quite a young industry, and unionization has taken a long time to properly start coming in. Although we are seeing that, thankfully, now.
Unionize, like this is if you need any bargaining power in this, it's either going to be unionization or like a very a conscious leader on like a very top level who's like, I'm not going to have this at my studio. Like what we're seeing with some smaller
which
teams.
is going to be rare because, you know, those people are tested on the bottom line. You know, they have shareholders and people above them that they need to present figures to every year, you know. So they're basically under pressure to not get rid of crunch culture because it's kind of what, at the moment, kind of sustains those figures going up. But the games industry, no matter what sector of it you're talking about, has a habit of hemorrhaging talent.
It's brain drain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not sustainable to use people up and spit them out.
No.
Because ultimately then you don't have going forward any of that kind of learned experience of game development or any of the learned experience of how to run a games website or how to properly market an indie game or whatever. You know, these are like real skills that we just kind of lose as soon as somebody decides to check out and go work in a bank, which a lot of people have done because like the benefits are better and they can actually afford to live, you know?
That's part of this is not to go off on a tangent here, but part of why so many games are buggy these days and so many big franchises sort of miss crucial things that they have been known for over the years is that a lot of the people that made those things moved on. So the new people coming in, they don't have the same experience with the engine, so you get technical problems, and they're not super really understanding or passionate about what came before in terms of design. So they're trying out these new ideas and playing different games, which is, you know, it's good and bad, but then it gets you a thing like Battlefield 2042, which is like, you know, Frankenstein's monster, which is like, what is this? What are we doing? Like, what is this? And it's like, okay, you look at this team and you look at the team that made BF4, Bad Company 2, completely different people, like almost entirely different people. A bunch of the people that made a lot of decisions left, and a lot of people that were familiar with the engine that got it to its state moved on. So this is another part of if you don't treat people right to retain them, down the line you're gonna just fail to make anything. Like it's just it's good now to have college kids coming out, hire them cheaply, and use their passion to work them 15-hour days, but then end of the day, like they're still green. Like you need the people that were there to guide them on and to love being at that job.
You need a heady mix of veterans and young blood. You do need young people to come in with their new ideas, and you know, you need people who aren't aware of the rules so they can break them, right? But you also need like the experienced people to rein those people in. So like, you know, a healthy kind of creative industry has a mix of those people. But what we've got in the games industry at the moment is like nobody sticks around long enough to become a veteran unless they're people like Glen Schofield, who's enjoyed, you know, basically being the CEO of multiple studios. Like, you know, he made a Call of Duty game and then he went off to find something else to make a new Dead Space and whatever. You know, but people like him are few and far between. So, yeah, I think his comments were unhelpful. He did walk them back, but the proof is in the pudding. And it's just yet more nails in the coffin of the idea that people should work hard on anything, frankly.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't mess up the studio. I hope we get a Callisto Protocol 2 or whatever. Yeah. And like the state of the game and kind of how it came out and that sort of thing doesn't shoot the studio in the foot.
Now, I don't know how well the game is done. Does anyone know yet?
We could be talking trash. Like the game could be selling out really well. We don't even know.
Yeah.
I think they're usually eager to give you good headlines and good stats for a new IP selling well.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're still buried under the mountain of criticism and issues they have to dealing with. Maybe you'll find out in January and be like, oh, this was for a new IP, which is always like a good caveat.
We might get some sort of headline like Callisto Protocol was the fastest selling game that only has ray tracing on one platform.
There you go. I love those very qualified statements.
Callisto Protocol was the best selling horror game in December.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
nice.
Pulling a Tim Burton, as we call it. So, you know, what a shame. And there's no disrespect to the developers who worked on that game because like they did work bloody hard and they did a great job for the most part. It's just it's things like polish and, having to completely skip a signature graphical feature on an entire platform that has the exact same support for it in hardware as the other platform does. It's quite mad how that's kind of worked out.
Yeah.
So these are things that happen when you have to rush something out.
Yeah, I wish we were sat there talking about the design issues and like whatever, but it's just we can't get to those. Like we're just talking about some other outside stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh well, that was the Thursday Night Rant.
Yeah.
Fuck knows what night it actually went out on. I've been Jim Trinker for VG247, and you should definitely like and subscribe, because if you don't, you smell. Check out the website, check out the podcast, check it all out. Check it out like it's Supermarket Sweet, man. I'll speak to you later.